Full transparency, I wrote most of this script about a year ago when the movie was coming out, but didn't actually make it into a video because YouTube just isn't fulfilling. With the passing of Toriyama, though, I felt I needed to do something to praise and honor him, so here we are. If you haven't already, you should give Sandland a read, and while you're at it, you should dabble in Toriyama's other works as well. Kawa and Jako are both charming stories, Kajika is cool as hell, and Toriyama's Manga Theater has a bunch of fun short stories too. I've never been that into Dr. Slump personally, but there's some fun to be had there as well. Oh yeah, and give the Dragon Quest series and Chrono Trigger a try too. He may not have been the writer for those games, but his designs in them are fantastic, and they're just great games anyways. I know Dragon Ball is the work he'll always be known for, and that's a great title to be tied to, but I think a lot of his other stuff should be celebrated too, because all of it reflects what a fantastic creative he was. He was a true artist with a unique voice, and more than anything, I feel like that's what I cherished most about him. I legitimately don't think we'll have anyone like him again, and knowing that really makes it feel like the world is worse without him. But let's not get too carried away with the sadness. Let's talk about something fun, like Sandland, a story about a destroyed world with people struggling to survive. Damn, I really should have uploaded this sooner. So, to set the stage, after multiple wars and disasters have ravaged the world, all that remains is a scorching desert dubbed Sandland. Things are pretty bleak for those still around, and it only gets worse when the once great river that flowed throughout dries up. The king of Sandland still has access to water somehow, but as the only available source, he charges an unreasonably high price for it, leaving his citizens to either pay up or die. After noticing some water finches traveling south, however, Sheriff Rao believes there to be another water source, and, not wanting the king to claim it, asks the demons of Sandland to help him find it. And so, with the prince of the demons Beelzebub and the clever thief, the three set off on their adventure. Yeah, as fun as this manga is, the setting is pretty depressing, and as you can see, the story has a not-so-nice view on humanity. Their destructive tendencies created this terrible world, and now human greed is only making it worse. They may dismiss or justify their actions by blaming it on other groups, but the narrative makes it clear that the root issue here lies with them. As critical as this story is on mankind, however, it's not a complete condemnation. It understands our faults, but also believes in our ability to learn and grow for the better. We just need to be pushed in the right direction, and that's where the demons of the story ironically come into play. While we don't get much of an overview on what demon society is like in Sandland, we do know that they aren't actually malicious. They like playing tricks on humans from time to time, and fight them out of necessity, but they don't kill and mostly just keep to themselves. Their main representative in the story, Beelzebub, is also incredibly sweet and pure-hearted. He may be a bit of a troublemaker and probably has bad breath, but from the start we can tell he's a good guy when he gives a box of water to a kid in need. And as the story goes on, we see just how compassionate, considerate, and selfless he really is. His partner Thief isn't as admirable and is kind of a coward, but he's still a pretty decent guy. He also knows the truth about a specific incident that's very important for humans to hear. In short, the demons of Sandland are extremely trustworthy, and their perspective and knowledge on the world is worth listening to. They honestly seem too good to be true, and I think the main reason for that, aside from the irony of it, is because despite being demons, they're still creatures of pure fantasy. Just like in our world, these demons may have some scary stories associated with them, but at the end of the day, they're not something to really be afraid of, especially when compared to the real problems plaguing the world. For us, they're just spooky tales, and here, they're wholly innocent. In both cases, they're completely removed from the gray realities of man, which is worth a whole lot in a place as bleak as Sandland. If a human could just listen and trust in what they had to say, then maybe something really good could come out of it. Which brings us to Sheriff Rao. Now, Rao is a pretty great guy himself. He's a noble, good-hearted man, and his real identity, Shiba, is actually known as a hero throughout Sandland. That said, even a renowned hero like him has some blood on his hands. Of course, that was in times of war when he served under the king, but even so, killing is killing. Even if you find out how horribly misguided or wrong your actions were, there's no going back from it. As you can see, things are a lot more complex with Rao compared to Beelzebub or Thief. Unlike them, Rao's character is rooted in an unfortunate reality where his mistakes can and have led to some terrible consequences, which is something I'm sure a lot of us can understand and sympathize with. He may be a good person at heart, but knowing what's right can be difficult at times. In his case specifically, it also doesn't help that the people he should have trusted spreaded lies, misconceptions, and propaganda to fill their own pockets. With that kind of environment in mind, it's not hard to see where he's coming from. At the same time, though, we can't downplay or ignore how damaging his actions were. There's a lesson to be learned there. Rao may have believed he was saving Sandland when he was commanded to destroy the PG People's machine, but the outcome was still devastating. Many innocent people died that day, and instead of being saved, Sandland was robbed of a better future. Even though he had every reason to question his orders, Rao gave his leaders the benefit of the doubt and attacked. Instead of seeing the bigger picture, he let his bias guide him, and the results were devastating. There's a lot of uncertainty that comes with being human, and that's unfortunate, yes. But staying ignorant will only mislead you and can potentially cause harm. That's the lesson found in Rao's tragic past, which is why his present has him coming to understand the perspective of others. He may have had his own preconceptions about the demons at first, but he kept an open mind. He listened to what they had to say, considered the facts, and looked at them through an honest lens. Which is why he trusts them when they tell him the truth about that incident. It's hard for him to hear, but it all lines up too well for him to reject it. And through this knowledge, he's able to identify his true enemy as well as the real problem plaguing Sandland. He's not the only one to grow like this either. With his vouch, along with the demons proving their worth, other humans set their prejudice aside to hear them out. And, after confirming it for themselves, they all help our characters out with their cause. Like Rao, they may have made some mistakes due to their bias and ignorance, but once they find their way, they show just how admirable they can really be. The rest of the story pretty much goes how you'd expect. With everyone's help, our heroes defeat the bad guys and restore water to Sandland. For all of its gripes about humanity early on, it's clear that the story still values the good mankind can accomplish. We may suck in a lot of ways, but we can be pretty great when we come together and fight for what's right. Of course, there's a disconnect here since a lot of real-world problems aren't always this straightforward, but that's why the narrative also imparts a couple messages about the dangers of ignorance and the importance of understanding others. Pure, trustworthy demons may not exist in our world, but good people do, and they can be found anywhere. We just need to give them an honest chance and reflect on our own biases. When all is said and done, that's what this story is about. These are pretty simple, well-trotted ideas, I know, but they're presented in such an honest and humble way that it's still kind of touching for me here. It always leaves me feeling a bit hopeful when I finish reading. I know all this talk about mankind's potential for good makes it sound like Sandland is some kind of super serious story, but that's kind of the great thing about it. It weaves its depressing setting and outlook on humanity through a really fun and uplifting adventure. The darker aspects aren't focused on too much, but they're still noticeable, and the contrast makes both elements pop out extremely well. Like, Sandland's setting may be bleak and barren, but the people, creatures, and even the vehicles that fill it are all brimming with personality and life. It's great. This duality is also what makes the story's optimism at the end so impactful. Just seeing the story flip its earlier cynicism by having all these selfish, distrustful people come together at the end to make a positive difference is really uplifting. I wish I had an equally inspiring way to end this video to counter how dour I was at the start and to match the story itself, but I'm not Toriyama. I'm not a master of blending contrasting elements, I'm not an imaginative creative, I'm not a brilliant artist who can make so much out of so little, I'm not a comedy and action genius, I'm not someone who can create and be a part of so many engaging and fun classics. There aren't as many people as talented as Toriyama, and even then there's no one specifically like him. His unique style and approach is something we'll never get again, and that thought still hurts me. The one comfort I can rely on, at least, is appreciating what he's already given us, because he gave us a lot. Again, please check out his other stuff if you haven't already. He has a huge body of work and there's so much to love there. The sadness of his passing will always linger, but so will the charm and joy of all of his works, and for that, I'm grateful. We even have a few more of his things to look forward to as well, like his added material to the Sandland anime, Dragon Ball Daima, and his designs for Dragon Quest XII. With that said, thank you, Toriyama. Your art, your creativity, your worlds and your characters, thank you for all of it. You are more than a legend, and I'm glad I was able to live in a time with you in it. Rest in peace.